For many people, Sunday mornings are a special time. A lot of folks, for instance, go to church on Sunday mornings. But when I was growing up in the 1970s and 80s, as a kid obsessed with the radio and pop music, Sunday mornings offered me spiritual comfort of a different kind.
American Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. This is American Top 40, and the countdown begins. Now, this week's countdown of the 40 biggest hits in the
American Top 40, Casey Kasem's weekly radio countdown of the 40 biggest hits on the charts, was something I never missed. Each Sunday, Casey's show provided music, suspense in the form of me wondering where my favorite songs would show up on the countdown that week, and gripping personal stories in the form of Casey's celebrated long-distance dedications, in which listeners mailed in emotional letters requesting songs that captured just what they wanted to say to someone special in their lives. Frequently requested for those tearjerker long-distance dedications was a bouncy yet touching song about the joys of friendship that was originally a pop hit in the late 70s, but took on new life in the mid-1980s when it became the theme song for a very popular television show. And ever since then, it's stayed in the public pop culture consciousness, a reliably comforting source of joy that reappears in everything from commercials to movies to viral videos, many of which conjure up nostalgia for the TV show's enduring legacy. And today, you'll meet a man who inspired the writing of that song, along with another man who, as a teenager listening to American Top 40 in the late 70s, became inspired by it. I'm David Peterkovsky, and this is Pop Comforts, a podcast series that explores the unexpected corners of popular culture that bring us comfort. Of course, Casey Kasem made a name for himself counting down the hits. But to list the most popular songs used for long-distance dedications between Casey's first dedication in 1978 and the last one he did before leaving the show in 1988, let's do a reverse countdown. Topping the list is Kenny Rogers with his hit song Through the Years, which was dedicated an astonishing 17 times during that period. Coming in second is Greatest Love of All by Whitney Houston, with 11 dedications. And tied for third place, with 10 long-distance dedications, is the song in question.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down a road and back again.
Thank You for Being a Friend, written and performed by Andrew Gold, was a modest pop hit when it was released in 1978. But its pop culture footprint has proven much bigger than the song's initial run on the pop music charts would indicate. And that's thanks to its use, starting in the fall of 1985, as the theme song to the TV series The Golden Girls.
Thank you for being a friend.
Since then, the song has been a reliable fixture in popular culture. It's been featured in countless other TV shows, from Family Guy
Thank you for being a friend.
to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia,
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again.
as well as a commercial for the National Football League.
There you go. Get him, get him, get him.
Connie, do you have a 9? Yes.
And in a TV salute to Golden Girl Betty White, as sung by Cher.
Thank you for being a friend.
In 2023, the song was re-recorded in Britain as a salute to caregivers for dementia patients, and artists such as Sting took part.
You would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend.
And if you search for the song on YouTube or on social media, you'll find countless versions sung by kids' choirs, gospel singers, and much more, all of which has transformed the catchy little ditty into the musical equivalent of an old friend. Given the song's decades-long popularity, I wanted to learn more about how it came to be. Sadly, Andrew Gold passed away in 2011, but as luck would have it, I was able to track down someone who wasn't just close to Andrew, he was also, in more ways than one, a vital part of the original record's creation.
My name is Brock Walsh. I am a songwriter, lyricist, and co-producer of the original recording of Andrew Gold's Thank You for Being a Friend, and that's the reason I'm sitting with David today, although I sure will get into solving some of the world's problems as well. It's nice to be here.
Sure put pressure on me. Brock's career in music has included stints as a staff producer for Quincy Jones's company, as well as songwriting credits for artists ranging from Christina Aguilera to Aretha Franklin to the Pointer Sisters. But it all started with his partnership with Andrew Gold, which began in the mid-'70s, not long after Brock finished up his studies at Harvard.
As a senior in college, my roommates urged me to send a recording of my demos to Electra Asylum Records, which I did. Weeks later, I got a friendly but non-committal response from a woman there who has gone on to be a lifelong friend named Laura Plotkin, who was the sister of the head of A&R of Electra Asylum. Oh my God, this is not as long a story as you think. Charlie Plotkin was the head of A&R at Electra Asylum. We like this and feel free to send us more material if you ever blah, blah. Fast forward a few months, when the day of my last final as a senior in college, I came home to my apartment and stuck into my mailbox was half a sheet of note paper. Hi, my name is Charlie Plotkin. I happen to be in Boston, and I thought I would reach out to you to see if you might have time to get together briefly. And I think, well, of course, you finish your last exam in college and you become a rock star, right? Isn't that how it goes for everybody?
Brock relocated to L.A. after college and reconnected with Charlie Plotkin, meeting up with him at the Sound Factory recording studio once he got to town.
And he happened to be sequencing Andrew Gold's first album. By the way, the recurring theme of this story and every other story you hear today will be the answer to who is the luckiest person on earth. And the answer is me. I am the luckiest person. Showed up at the studio. Andrew walked through the door. Andrew was playing backgammon with his then manager and my future brother-in-law, Norman Epstein, who was the manager of Carla Bonoff and Jennifer Warnes and a number of other artists. They were friendly. They were nice. Listened to Andrew's album. It was kind of amazing in a beautiful recording studio setting. We shook hands. We said, I hope we see each other again soon. And some time later, weeks though, not months, I got a call from Andrew saying, listen, we're putting together a band to front my opening act and Linda Ronstadt's tour. And we're looking for a multi-instrumentalist, utility infielder, singer, blah, blah. Which, had it been any other description, I would have not been a good candidate. But as it turns out, I'm a good chameleon. I'm a good singer, and I can strum my way through a guitar and a bass and an organ and a piano, and just not drums, whatever.
The audition for this high-profile gig took place at Andrew's house in the Hollywood Hills, and it went well.
He was super friendly. It was like being at a friend's house, you know. And Andrew then, about 20 minutes into it, goes, oh, and you're going to love it when we're on tour and this happens. We get into the tour bus and we play cards at the end, and I have a couple of drinks and play cards. You're going to love it. Now, could you play and he would go on to the next song and I'd play it. We sang together, and he and I, it was like instant magic. You know, we heard the fluctuations and the harmonic subtleties of each other's voice and immediately tuned ourselves to the other. And so then 5 minutes later, he goes, oh, and you're going to love this about being on tour. When the third time he said, you're going to love this about the tour, I said, Andrew, you seem to be saying, and excuse me for interrupting, but am I going to get the job? He goes, oh, yeah, you play great, you sing great, you're a nice person, of course. Yeah, you got the job. Just like that, like within 45 minutes or an hour. And I went into the bathroom, closed the door, and silently looked into the mirror and shook. My body actually shook as I feigned screaming into the mirror so I could see it. And that began a long and very fortuitous relationship with Andrew Gold. Now, I'll just say one last sentence. He was the single most talented musician with whom I've ever played or known, and his friendship with me and his support of me was 99% of the reason I enjoyed the success I have enjoyed, however much that is. Not the most famous guy in the world, but I've had a lot of success, and I owe it all to my relationship with him and Charlie Plotkin and his sister, Laura Plotkin, who was his assistant and initially responded favorably to my work.
I'm kind of mesmerized because I think Andrew was, in his early 20s at this point? I mean, he was pretty young.
That's right. It was 1975, so he was 24.
It sounds like you were his musical brother from another mother, as they might say these days.
We were very, very dovetailed in our ability. Musical ability, Andrew. Instrumental ability, Andrew. But sort of musical diplomacy, I'm able to be the grout in your tile, David. I don't know if you're taken, but I'll be the grout in your tile.
Given their grout and tile compatibility, Andrew and Brock soon began working together on Andrew's next record.
There came a time when Andrew left Linda, and I was faced with a choice. Do you want to continue playing with Andrew, or do you want to continue being a sideman? Again, I was not as important to Linda's dynamic as I was to Andrew, and I saw a closer kinship, both musically and personally. So I stayed with Andrew, and All This in Heaven 2 was his third album. I worked with him on the second album. I sang, I played. But when it came to the third one, he asked me if I wanted to join him. And of course, I don't mind telling this story. There was a debate, of course, at the end. Is it going to say produced by Andrew Gold and Brock Walsh? No, it's going to say with. And I was like, this is not a semantical difference. You clearly want to state that my contribution was less than yours. And Andrew, please tell me, if you want to state my contribution was less than yours, then go with. And if you want to just say we worked on this together and we don't want to parse out who did what, then say and. He said, we're going to do with. And I went, bless your heart. Okay, fine. I'm still grateful. I benefited greatly by working on it, but it's just a bit of that Hollywood, shuffle.
Sure. So I want to stay in that period. And so you're producing with and by next to Andrew for that album. And
where were you when I needed you?
Yeah, I could have come up with all kinds of possible credits for you, I guess. I know you didn't write Thank You for Being a Friend, but do you recall when you first heard him play it to you?
Okay, trust me, the story is true. Andrew said to me one day when we were assembling songs for that record, I wrote a song for you. And Norman, his manager, my friend, by now our jointly our friend. He said, I wrote a song for you guys. And it's called Thank You for Being a Friend. And it goes like this. Dun, 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 thank you for being a friend. It was like, that is the sweetest thing. Thank you so much. I love you too. And that's the greatest song gift I think a guy ever got, Certainly plenty of women have received songs as testimonials to their romantic potential, but friends, platonic friends, less so, right? So, yeah, that song was written to his friend and future best man. I was best man at his wedding. He was best man at mine. I think it was a testimonial to how much we loved each other, I loved him. He can't speak for himself anymore, but I know he loved me too.
Yeah, it's a great story. And is it true it took him about an hour to write, as far as you know?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew was a good lyricist. He's not a Randy Newman or a Paul Simon. Few of us are, including me. But when he latched on to a simple, heartfelt message, there was probably no one better. I think the lyric to that song is pretty much perfect. It's simple. It's reduced. It's bouillon, emotional bouillon. You know, it's not a lot of imagery or abstraction to it, but it's just pure friendship. And in that way, he latched on to something and didn't let go of the dragon's tail until he had written a great song. And yeah, it probably took him an hour.
Great things don't have to be complex. And I think the sincerity is what comes through the most with that song.
I'll tell you what, as it's something I struggled with as a songwriter, a 40-year career in songwriting, it's something I struggled with, how to write the great simple song. Because I am a great lover of words. I never want to use a more complex word when a simpler word will be just as or more effective. However, when there is a more complex or arcane word that says more, I want to use that word. But I think very often pop artists in the 80s and 90s and aughts wanted something simpler, and sometimes I wasn't their cup of tea. But when some people really got it and loved it, and for that I was rewarded. But yeah, he really wrote the hell out of that song.
He did. So you touched on this before. Online, I saw what I would have guessed was a photo of you and Andrew in what looked like formal wear. That must have been a wedding photo from one of your weddings, his or yours. Have you seen that photo online?
Mine. Yeah, that was taken at the Hotel Bel Air in 1977.
Wow.
December 30th. Next time, if you want to send a bottle of Dom next year. My 50th is coming up. My God.
Wow. Yeah. And you were in his wedding as well, you said.
Yes, I was.
Yeah. So fast forwarding a bit from the late 70s to the mid 80s, what did you think when the song was repurposed as a theme song for a certain sitcom?
I hoped he got an absolute boatload of money, and he did. That's a personal choice, excellent reuse of the song on a super popular sitcom. That's we all dream of that. There aren't that many ways to really go to the bank except a huge hit song, I suppose. But I was happy for him, completely happy for him.
Do you know if he was disappointed not to have his version or the version you guys recorded together on there?
I don't know that. I don't know.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I mean, what that must feel like to write something that you sang, wrote, played on, and to have it take off with another voice and another recording. I guess he was okay with it if the checks were big.
I don't think there is a flat answer that works in all cases. However, songwriters whose songs are recut by big artists and the songwriter goes on to, earn their living as a result of a secondary recording of a song not sung by the artist, fine. That's fine. Even if I disagree with some of your artistic choices, I should be gracious enough to just shut up and go to the bank. Drive to the bank instead of, post any criticism of it.
Though they rarely wrote songs together, Andrew encouraged Brock's songwriting work, and they remained good friends right up until Andrew's unexpected passing from a heart attack at the age of 59.
He was also very supportive of my being a songwriter. I mean, at the same time, I was getting songs cut by all kinds of people, and he liked him and was very praiseworthy, and particularly of my lyrical writing. He would go, I don't know how you do that. That's amazing, But it didn't compete. It didn't intrude on our creative relationship. We stayed in our lanes, and we tried to reinforce one another and bring strength where it was appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Did you two stay close throughout or the rest of his life?
Yes, we did. Very much so. I have photo books here in my house through the years, and Andrew's always in them. We used to throw just the best Christmas party where we would gather around the piano and sing Christmas carols. And this was attended by some of the greatest singers in Southern California in the 80s and 90s. And I make a terrific eggnog from scratch that gets you in the mood to sing. And these were vociferous and enthusiastic choral events. They were legendary. And Andrew was always there. And I can still, in my mind's eye, see the picture of him holding a glass of eggnog. He loved the eggnog. And everyone loved Andrew sort of the same way. His childlike qualities stayed accessible for his whole life. His warmth, his humor, his friendship was important to him, and he let you know. And that's kind of great.
Yeah. So since the use of Thank You for Being a Friend on the Golden Girls, there have been quite a few covers of this song. I'm wondering, do you have any particular favorite versions of it besides the original, of course?
Not really. No. Nothing has ever dislodged the original record from my hit parade, you know. I mean, that was captured something about the essential friendship and musicianship of everyone involved at the time. And the background vocals, you know, we had a background group. Kenny Edwards and Andrew and myself called ourselves the Smog Tones. In fact, we were credited as the Smog Tones on a number of records, you know, background vocals by the Smog Tones. And that's so us. I want to thank you. You know, it was just so the time. It's great.
Yeah. Are you singing the harmonies as well, or is that him stacked up?
That's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. As far as covers, I've seen gospel covers of it on YouTube.
And the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend. Woo! Anybody glad that you can call Jesus your friend?
I'm not surprised. I don't think I've even seen them.
There's some that are actually pretty impressive and some that veer into the silly. And there was also a cover version done at the start of the pandemic in which people were singing thank you to the essential workers at the time. You know that.
Hey, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of the nurses. Here's to the docs and the frontline workers. Your hearts are strong. You're all heroes and warriors.
Good job, Andrew, writing a song that would have relevance in other settings for you. And by the way, good for you, any songwriter who chooses a theme which is universal and will never lose its relevance.
So what inspired you to do your own ukulele-based version of it?
Money. A friend of mine, David Burtock, who's a talented composer here in L.A., I just admired his work. He admired mine. I said, we should do something together sometime. He goes, well, this commercial company wants me to do blah. I went, oh, yeah, let's do that. So we did.
Let me tell you about a friend. Thank you. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you.
So it was done for a commercial?
It was done for one of those library companies. You know, they pay you X recoupable against, you know, if a client then asks for that song and they send a clip of your version and 7 other versions, and the client goes, oh no, ukulele, that's the one I want. Then you're suddenly on a, you know, Verizon wireless ad and you're earning income.
Yeah. Or ask your doctor if flumoxamine is right for you, and that's in the background.
Okay, I will. And thank you, David, for the medical advice. I didn't know I was going to get that as well.
I can see it in a medical commercial. I don't know. I feel like every one of those commercials has some sort of throwback song in it, so you never know.
I joke with my wife every time I see one, you know, I've got to try, you know, Radions or whatever the hell it's called, because if you do that, you can play pickleball. you become a great pickleball player. And the sun is always shining. I got to try that drug.
Instead of pickleball, Brock took up something else over the past few years, writing classical music. In late 2023 came the worldwide debut of Emigre, an oratorio for which he contributed the lyrics to several of its arias, teaming with another old friend, composer Aaron Zigman. The plot is a far cry from his pop music writing.
Jews who had to leave Nazi Germany in the mid-1930s and who had the choice of two ports in which to disembark, either the Dominican Republic or Shanghai, China, because the rest of the world had shut its doors to Jews. Kind of a great piece of history that I had been unaware of, but certainly deserves being told, and people are really sort of interested in it. My friend Aaron Zigman thought of me first, gave me the shot, and we rode that wave for 5 years and kept our heads down and got the work done. Pretty great.
You probably learned a lot along the way. I mean, I don't know that you've done a lot of oratorios in your career.
In one conversation I had with an agent, I was just like, how do I turn this into my next gig in oratorio land, you know? And she said, Brock, well, for a couple things. You don't need an agent. You're nobody, and nobody knows who the hell you are. And I say that not critically. I'm hearing you. I want the straight poop, you know? She said, you don't need an agent. No one knows who the hell you are. Fine. Be nice. And if someone likes your work and they hear that you're a nice person, they'll call you, you know? So I don't know what comes next. You know, I always say to people, the next time I have a 5-year plan will have been the first time I have a 5-year plan.
So I guess the last question I have for you is, throughout all of this, is there sort of a through line? I mean, going from writing and performing on pop music to classical music, as a writer, can you see things in your earlier work that tie into your later work?
Stay interested. You know, nothing that I've ever done has succeeded without my being interested, without fully submerging myself, loving the medium in which I'm working. You know, like I tried to write country music. I don't love country music. God bless you if you do. And you deserve to love everything you love. I could never do it because I don't love it. You know, I'm going to answer a different last question. It's about being 71. And it sucks on a lot of levels. But the thing that I love about it is knowing what you know. You know it. And you trust that you know it. And if you can trust what you know, and I know that it's not everything, not even close, but if I can trust what I know, then I can access. I don't doubt myself when I'm in the process of creating something. And I'm in the middle of a writing project right now. I know what I know, and I'm loving it because there's some benefits to experience. There's some benefits to having lived a full life, you know?
Mm-hmm. The other through line I'm realizing as you're telling these stories is that you've been sort of kind and open and flexible with people, and it seems to have served you well also.
You are so kind to say so, David, and I suspect the same might be true of you.
Thank you.
Although we've only known each other for 54 minutes and 19 seconds. There's certainly a power in not fearing people and seeing what's good about them and trying to access what's good about them, try to empower what's good about them. What's the benefit of doing anything else?
Well, you know, a more elegant speaker than I am might try to tie the kindness thing back to the song we started talking about earlier and the message in it, but I don't know that I can do it quite that gracefully. But I think somewhere in there is a connection.
You know what? I wake up in the morning kind of cheerful and kind of hopeful that by jumping into the best opportunity I have to do something fun and creative and successful, that will be a recipe for a good day. And I'll go back to the very beginning. I am the luckiest person I've ever met because living that way and believing that has brought me in touch with a great many extremely loving and talented people. And the more talented people have been in my life, the kinder they are. They don't have time for malicious thoughts or behavior. The fun is in the creation, and the creation is in getting to the heart of things. And that means being a friend of somebody if you can.
Yeah. Well, we'll end it there. Brock, I want to thank you for being a thoughtful person and replying to my request for an interview. I appreciate it. And for a song that took Andrew Gold maybe an hour or so to write, it's had a remarkable and comforting lifespan all its own. And I guess you're a key part of that story. So thank you for chatting with me about it.
You're welcome. When I first heard your name, of course, I Googled you and listened to some of your podcasts, and I could hear the thoughtfulness and the generosity in your questions and your comments, which made this a delight, and count me in on any future endeavors.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks again.
Yeah, it was really fun. I look forward to talking again.
Okay. Take care.
Cheers, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, Brock Walsh made his gratitude quite clear. His longtime friendship with Andrew Gold didn't just provide an immense boost to his career. It was also deeply rewarding personally. And, with Brock helping to inspire and produce Andrew's best-known song, that bond proved fruitful in both directions. But I couldn't stop thinking about how Thank You for Being a Friend inspired 10 different long-distance dedications on the American Top 40 radio program I'd listened to as a kid. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great to track down someone who'd sent in a request for that song way back when? It turned out, with a little luck and a lot of Googling, it wasn't that tough to do.
My name is Chris Van Sickle. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, actually a little outside the city. I made a long-distance dedication on Casey Kasem's American Top 40 way back in 1979, and the song that I used was Andrew Gold's Thank You for Being a Friend.
Yep, a letter that Chris wrote when he was a teenager was read on the edition of American Top 40 that played on the weekend of March 31st, 1979. And even though that was almost a half-century ago, the story of that dedication still offers up some surprising impact, even to Chris, as you're about to hear. Like me, Chris was a regular listener to American Top 40, the show being a part of his Sunday routine, too.
I started listening to it maybe as a preteen or as a teenager. It was carried on Sunday mornings and repeated on Sunday nights on a radio station in Atlanta. And Sunday morning, I would listen to American Top 40, up until time to go to church, and whatever I didn't get to listen to during church time, I'd listen to again when they repeated it that night. So it was a favorite of mine.
And at what point did you decide to mail in a long-distance dedication?
As I said, I lived in Atlanta, and when I was around 16, I guess I was still maybe 15 at the time, my father was transferred. He worked for Sears. He was transferred to Chicago, and we spent a good part of that summer of 1978 getting ready to move and everything. But I was very close with my church group, who had kind of rescued me a little bit. I was kind of a misfit in high school. I didn't have a lot of friends. I was being influenced by not the right kinds of people or whatever, and I needed some direction. So I reached out to this group at church, and they welcomed me in, and it was a great teen group. We did all kinds of great things, dance marathons. We had a youth group trip to Daytona Beach. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And of course, there was the church worship and everything like that went along with it. So of course, moving to Chicago was going to be uprooted from that. And it wasn't pleasant. I didn't want to move. I had to struggle and start all over again, finding new friends, finding where I belonged there. So, around the spring of 1979, I'd been listening to American Top 40 for years. And of course, I'd heard the long distance dedications and thought, it would be kind of great to have one of mine played on the radio Sunday. And here was a good opportunity. I wanted to reach out to my church youth group, my friends, and say thank you to them and let them know how much I missed them. So I dedicated the Andrew Gold song, Thank You for Being a Friend. It had been a hit. It was a favorite of mine. I liked his song, Lonely Boy, and then I liked Thank You for Being a Friend that came out later. But I, wrote my story, mailed it in. And then one day, it must have been like around April or May in 1979, Casey Kasem says, coming up next, a long distance dedication to a youth group in Atlanta from one of their members who moved to Chicago. And it was my story. And Casey read it on the air, and then he, of course, played the song. And, I was just beyond thrilled to be able to hear that. It was exciting. And every time I might communicate with some of these friends on Facebook now, they still talk about it. They still think it's exciting.
So I always wondered about this. Once you mailed in the letter, did you have to listen to every second of every show after that, hoping they might play your song? I mean, they did not give you a heads up at all.
They gave me no heads up, of course, and I was going to listen to the show anyway because it was a favorite thing, for me. But I just listened week after week and was taken by surprise when they made that announcement. When they said, it was from Chicago to Atlanta in a church group, I'm like, that's got to be me. That's got to be mine. And of course, I called my mother and father into the room and I said, they're going to play my thing. They're going to play my thing. And, I was only 16. So I was still, living at home with my parents and still in high school. And it was exciting.
Yeah. And I know you heard it, but did any of the people you were dedicating it to hear it? Do you have any?
They did. And one of the members made a recording of it, and they had their monthly meeting or bi-monthly meeting or whatever shortly thereafter. And of course, they played the recording at the youth group meeting, and some of them had already heard it on the radio, and some of them had not. And one of the girls that I was friends with from that group wrote me a letter, and she said, I heard your dedication. It made my day. I was dancing around the room, listening to that song while it was playing. I was so happy to hear it.
That's perfect. Success. I know in the letter you wrote, you were pretty upfront about some of the struggles you were facing. I mean, did you have any hesitation to do that?
Not at all. I thought the way that I wrote the letter was like, they're going to have to play this. It's a good story. It means something. And that's what people are going to hear. If I were a producer putting together a show and I said, I need something that's going to mean something to the listeners, it's going to maybe jerk a few tears out of some people, that's the kind of the way I wrote the letter.
In hearing you tell this story, I'm thinking back to what sometimes gets called the monoculture days, back when if you wanted to hear a radio show or watch a TV show, you had to be in front of your radio or your TV at that time or else you missed it completely. It's kind of amazing that we were able to catch a lot of the same things that we all did. And even more amazing that some of the kids back in Atlanta heard this dedication.
Yes. And Sirius XM on their 70s on 7 radio station, they used to play the rebroadcasts of American Top 40 without commercials and so forth. And they were doing it kind of chronologically. So I was listening to that station for a couple of years saying, when they're getting into 1979, they're going to play my long distance dedication. I'm going to hear it again, but I haven't. I haven't been able to catch it on that station, unfortunately.
So when was the last time you heard it?
Probably the first time it was broadcast.
So you haven't heard it since then?
I haven't heard it since 1979.
Do you want to hear it now?
I'd love to.
Hang tight. I am going to pull it up for you because I have it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go.
This is Casey Kasem on American Top 40 in Hollywood. And now, our AT40 long-distance dedication. The one from the young man in Illinois to the youth group in Georgia. His name is Chris, and he writes, Dear Casey, most of your dedications are between lovers, but mine is for a group of friends I care very much for, the Christian Youth Organization. The CYO is a group of young people from my old church in Georgia. Before I joined the CYO, I didn't know where I was going. My head was all mixed up and I was starting to use drugs. The group cooled me down and I began to love the Lord even more. I forgot the drugs and became a stronger Christian. For 2 years, we had a lot of fun. We went on camping trips, had parties and dance marathons, and even went on long-distance vacations. Then, a couple of months ago, my dad was transferred and I had to move to Illinois. The greatest part of my life was over. I had to say goodbye to Mike, Mark, Lex, a couple of Sharons, Bill, Dave, Kathy, and Teresa, and many, many more good friends. I'd be grateful if you would dedicate the song, Thank You for Being a Friend, to the CYO in Georgia. Though I'm no longer a part of them, they will always be a big part of me. Thank you, Casey, and God bless you. Signed, Chris. Okay, Chris, here's your long-distance dedication. Andrew Gold's hit of a year ago.
Thank you for being a friend.
So there you go.
Wow.
How's it feel to hear it again?
It's touching. Thank you.
You bet.
I have, like I said, I have not heard that since the first time it was on the air.
I am shocked. I thought for sure you would have had this and played it over the years.
I didn't have a recording, and one of my friends in the group that said he did record it. He had it in a case full of cassettes that got stolen from his car. So that's the last that he ever heard it.
Wow. Well, the internet saves the day. I've got it for you, and I'll email it to you as soon as we're done here.
How'd you find it?
I just started Googling around, so it's interesting. There are a lot of places where you can find out about long-distance dedications on American Top 40 and what songs were played when. And I saw a list of the times that song was played on the show. It was actually used 10 different times. And I found the 1979 show it was on and found a copy of it online.
Very good. What's your connection to the song?
It's just a song I've always really liked. Andrew Gold is an interesting musician, songwriter. I think he's underrated. I don't know how much you know about him.
He played for Linda Ronstadt's band, I think.
Yeah. And then when I realized how often that song had been used on American Top 40 as a long-distance dedication, I thought, well, that would be something interesting to explore. Maybe I can find someone who actually requested it. So that's why we're talking today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I'm really glad I was able to track you down so many years after your long-distance dedication of Thank You for Being a Friend. And it's great to hear that the song still holds special meaning for you. I appreciate you doing this. You are, in fact, a pal and a confidant.
I had a blast. It was a lot of fun.
Same for me. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I was certainly happy to give Chris the unexpected, emotional gift of hearing his long-distance dedication once again after all these years. The comfort that he must have felt being reunited with that old recording seemed significant. And maybe that speaks to the immense power of music and the power that a song played at just the right time can have on us. When we lack the ability to clearly express whatever we're feeling, be it joy or sadness or gratitude for the people in our lives, sometimes a song is just the friend we need. Pop Comforts is a production of me, David Peterkowski. My thanks to Brock Walsh for sharing his stories of working with the late Andrew Gold on Thank You for Being a Friend and more. And my thanks to Chris Van Sickle for strolling down memory lane with me as we revisited his long-distance dedication of the now iconic song from more than 4 decades ago. Music for this episode was provided by Chris Zabriskie, Blue Dot Sessions, Albus, and Ernie Francisstein. You can find the Pop Comforts webpage on Medium.com, specifically at popcomfortspodcast.medium.com. And if you haven't heard the other episodes in this series, I encourage you to go back and check out the rest of Pop Comforts. You can find and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.